Are you? Can you read for me John 18:15?
And Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple.
That is John now. You see, he always referred himself another disciple. He didn't say his name straight in all his gospel. You don't see him even calling his name. And that's so underline that disciple. That's John.
That disciple was known unto the high priest.
That was known unto the what? Unto the high. John was known unto the high priest. What did he do now?
And went in with Jesus into the palace of the high priest.
He was allowed into the palace, and because he was a priest.
But Peter stood at the door without.
So Peter was not allowed in. That without says he was outside. He was not allowed to enter in because he was a commoner and he was not a Levite.
Then went out the other disciple.
Then did what?
Then went out that
That
other
is
disciple.
John now. You get it?
Which was known unto the high priest.
That's it.
And spake unto her that kept the door, and brought in Peter.
You see, he put a word out. You know, let him come in. Let him come in. He's with me. He's with me. And who is this damsel? You remember who told Peter off? Because I thought he was inside, but he was the doorkeeper. So when he allows in Peter, he looks at him. And then he remembers. What does it say, 17?
Then said the damsel that kept the door unto Peter, Art not thou also one of this man's disciples?
Can you imagine? So Peter now knows, well, I'm in trouble here. They might also take me in and start slaughtering me. So what happens now?
He saith, I'm not. And the servants and officers stood there, who had made a fire of coals, for it was cold, and they warmed themselves. And Peter stood with them and warmed himself.
Then also again it happened. And so we see John giving the whole thing of inside judgment, where other gospels don't give, because Mark was not a disciple, Luke was not a disciple, it was only Matthew. And Matthew was not allowed in. He was not even here to give this account. So all the other accounts, they give shallow things around the Passover. But it's only John who brings it out really, really well. Let us see 28 of the same chapter.
Then led they Jesus from Caiaphas unto the hall of judgment.
That's where,
And it was early.
You see? It was early on the day of Passover. That would be Passover in the night. And why do we know? How do we know this? By what comes next? Read the next verse.
And they themselves went not into the judgment hall, lest they should be defiled, but that they might eat the Passover.
You see? So the Passover was not yet. They didn't want to go in because they knew they were crucifying an innocent man. And these Pharisees knew that that would defile them. So they didn't want to go in there to place judgment on an innocent man, and then they would not eat the Passover. Do you see now that this Last Supper was not a Passover meal? It was a normal meal just before the Passover. Are we getting something here? Because a lot of people are telling us that that meal was on the Passover, was on the day before the Lord was crucified. But it was not. Are we getting something here? They did not want to be defiled because they wanted to do what? To eat the Passover. And if it was Passover, they could not even escort Yeshua to be killed. Because that day was a preparation day. They call it a preparation day. Because the next day was going to be what? A high Sabbath. Which was the Passover high Sabbath. Are we getting something? So on that day they are allowed to go and collect everything. That's the day they kill the lamb. During that afternoon. And that is when we see now Yeshua being also killed in that afternoon. Like the lamb they killed in Egypt. Are you getting exactly what I'm saying? Because this will make a lot of sense for you when you are explaining. Now they killed the lamb at 3 o'clock. Now John knew what was happening in the temple. Because the priest starts killing these lambs at 9 in the morning. That is when they brought him where? To the judgment. You remember? You have just read it. So as the lambs were starting to be slain, given their judgment of death by the knife, even here Yeshua was being given the judgment of the knife in the morning early. Are you getting me? Now we see that from 9 that he was already condemned to die. Now the priest in the temple starts slaughtering lambs because there are many people come and bring. They start slaughtering at 9. Even when you read the culture and the temple services. And they slaughter until 3 p.m. And then the high priest would come out at 3 after the last lamb has been killed. He comes out in the temple and announces, it is finished. Now the Lord at the cross also did what? What did he say last?
Finished.
It is finished. The same phrase as the high priest was saying the same thing in the temple. Here the Lord, the most high priest, was also saying, it is finished. And then that's why the priest saw the veil being destroyed from the top. It was not from the bottom. And remember, it was 40 feet up. So no man would be there to say that somebody went up and tore it. Are you getting something here? From the top to the bottom. Why? Because the Lord had now joined the New Testament to the Old Testament. The shadow was being fulfilled. And that day, he was crucified on the very site of the altar where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. You remember they got a ram in the bush that had thorns on its head. What symbolized the thorns of Yeshua on the cross? Are you getting me? And as the blood trickled down and trickled down from the cross, from Yeshua, it went down through the crack. You know, there was earthquake and everything. Yeah? It just went through the crack and then dropped where the Ark of the Covenant was. That's where it was eaten, and that is where the altar of Abraham was about. That altar, it is the same place. That blood now seals the new covenant with the old covenant. You cannot separate the old from the new. And unless you understand the Old Testament and you also get revelation in the New Testament, you will never appreciate the feasts of the Lord. But these are his holy feasts. These are his holy convocations. These are his holy appointments. These are his holy appointments when he remembers how he gave his only begotten son. Only begotten son. So whoever believes in him